today in London and I'm trying to find out what the London people think about digital ID. I asked several people and most of the time they don't even know what it is. The ones who know what it is are actually foreign and they have the most issue with security of the data, but not really about how it can be misused by the government.
You mean ID like a passport or?
Yes, a digital passport.
Well, yeah, it's sure. It's good to think. Why not?
Don't you think that is taking away your freedoms from the government to be controlled very easily? Like Orwell wrote in his book?
Well, what is like a world without any control? If government will have no control at all, then it will be a house. So it should like have some control, but right now it's going really bad way. I think so. It should be have some control, but not like huge.
So you think right now is too much control in Britain?
Well, I come from Russian.
Oh, okay.
So right now it's like it's going to be like the next China. So where people like don't have any control and everything you do, it's like you have a balls like you have. I mean, how to say it? I'm sorry, I'm not really good in English.
No problem. No problem.
So it should be some control, but not like in China, I think.
So do you think that right now in Britain they have a tendency to become more and more like China? As coming out of Russia, you have a good example.
No? I don't feel like it's gonna be close like to
So you
China.
feel still free here in Britain?
Yeah, there is like much more freedom here than in Russia or in China.
Like it's a passport on your phone, like a QR code, what the British government wants to implementate now?
Yeah, e-visa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not e-visa, but like a passport.
The passport.
Like a passport, yeah. Everything you have on your phone, everything is connected with your digital ID, your bank account.
I'm not here about it.
Okay, but this is what they discuss right now in Parliament.
Yeah, maybe it's good idea. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, if it's, everything is digital, it's good.
You don't be afraid of hacking attacks
No.
and that the government got too much power and maybe closes your bank accounts because they think you're not following their agenda or their ideas?
No, but it's, anywhere we have problem, but we don't need to think about the problem. We need to think about what they say, the good. Because everywhere is the bad and the good.
Do you have an opinion what digital ID is and do you think it's a good idea?
We really don't know any to be honest.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like a passport on your phone which is connected to everything what you have, like when you go out and then they can just scan your QR code and all that. Do you think that's good or it's more odd?
In a way, handy maybe.
Yeah.
But not sure about the security thing then. But
Like,
because it's the first time I heard about this.
yeah, it's debated right now in Parliament because they say how they can make this more accessible for the poorer part of the society in Britain with the phones and stuff. But also when you hear about social credit system in China, this is like if you not follow what the government does, they take this credit away, so you're not allowed to go on holiday or something. Do you think this could maybe be the fourth step with this digital ID? Because when you are in the pot of digital data, it's very easy to get more and more access to you. So
That's very true too. Yeah. Oh. This is a hard subject.
Yeah, this is really
2 out of
speechless.
But I mean, kind of goes like hand in hand, the bad and the good on it. But yeah, sorry, I really don't know what to say. This came too fast.
I'm
kind of like a
50-50.
yeah. I understand it might be easier and everything, but also then
It's like a higher
people,
risk.
also higher risk of security, but.
Do you think the government should be more informative, educative about it? Like, if they talk about it in Parliament, maybe they should first tell the people about it and then debate if they actually want to put it in law.
Of course, yeah, that should be like. So
I really don't know. I don't know much about politics, so I can't really say anything.
Yeah, but yeah, no. I agree with that. But yeah, that's a very new thing for me. I've never heard that one before. But yeah, huh? Interesting. Good to know.
So a digital ID is like a digital passport on your phone, which is connected with your social number and your bank accounts and car insurance. And the British government is right now debating in Parliament to implement this. So, do you think that's a good idea to have so much digital control over your life, or do you think that's okay?
It's okay, but I have to make sure that about the privacy and the confidentiality. Will it be safe and secure, and who owns the data? I'd like to know more about the security because it's confidentiality.
Yeah. Do you think? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I finished.
So do you think there could maybe an overreach of power after it was implemented? So like 5 years, everything is fine, and then the government says, okay, now everyone is used to it. We can have more power over you, take a little bit more of your freedoms away, and then you have examples like China, where areas with social credit system. Do you think this could also happen in Britain when they have those powers?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because I'm concerned. As I told you, who will have the control? Who will control all of these stuff? Yeah, who will governance that? Will it be covered by GDPR or here from UK? And also, what about the other countries? Will they accept that or not? Or do you mean that will be just in UK? But anyway, I think it's promising. It will be promising.
Do you know what the digital ID is?
No idea, no.
So a digital ID is like a QR code for your passport, what you have on your phone, and you have to show everyone. Do you think that's a good idea because your parliament is debating right now to implementate this?
So what is it exactly, sorry?
It's a digital ID, like a digital passport, what you have on your phone, and you always have to have with you.
Yeah, I think we're going into more of a digital world, so it could be a good idea because everything's becoming digitalized. But then, of course, it risks cyber attacks and stuff like that, being a bit more vulnerable to those things.
So, do you think there could be a fear of overreach from the government while you have those digital IDs? Because there are some Hollywood movies where you have, for example, social credit systems. So if you don't do what the government wants, you get less credits. You're not allowed to leave the house, or suddenly your money is away from your bank account because it's connected to your digital ID.
Do you mean like they can connect your cards to it and your face ID?
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a risk, and there's definitely a need for regulations on these kinds of things. I think the rate that technology is advancing, it's becoming a bit more difficult to have regulations that keep up with it. But that it would be very important, I think, going forward. Yeah.
What do you think about digital IDs?
Well, I can already see the start of it. So when you go to the supermarket, you have a little screen that records you. I don't know why they're recording you. You're scanning your products, and are they checking to see what you're scanning, if you're paying? And then what I've noticed is when I do go shopping, there's these police vans outside shopping malls and your everyday shopping Tesco's or Morrison's, and they're recording people coming in and out. That's strange for me. Is it because they want to catch shoplifters? Digital ID for me is a big red flag. That's for me, because why does anyone want to be controlled? And that for me is also saying that your freedom is going to be limited. I think when we speak to people about what it entails, yes, we need some control over what's being accessed, how it's being accessed, but at the same time, it is worrying because in the scam baiting community, the amount of information that's being leaked, the amount of people that are being scammed, the awareness isn't there. What is digital ID? And if you look at the poorer communities, they don't have the access to the digital world like the middle class or the upper class. And it's a big question mark. What is digital ID?
So do you think that at the point the digital ID is implemented in the UK, that the government maybe tries to misuse this power what digital ID could bring?
Anything can be misused. So yeah, let's implement you carrying a little tool, a little chip in your arm. What is digital ID? We already saw the digital vaccines during COVID that didn't work. A lot of people just simply ignored the fact and suffered the consequences. Are we going to see that again moving forward? Are people just going to ignore the fact and say, I don't want to be part of that society, so therefore I would rather want to be excluded from it? And if it means I don't have the benefits of being part of society, well then fair play, then I won't be part of society. And I think a lot of people saw that during the pandemic. A lot of people were happy not being part of society if it meant still mingling with like-minded people and having your smaller communities. Who cares about big companies, big corporations? And but we are seeing a lot of people for it. But what does it mean?
Right now, it's discussed in the British Parliament to implement this digital ID, and we will hear from Alan Miller what he thinks about the digital ID.
Hello, Alan. Thank you for having you on our show today. And I want to talk with you about a very important topic, digital ID, because I did a street interview or several street interviews in London last week with pedestrians being in London, just walking by. And I asked them, what do you know or what do you think about the digital ID? And most of the time was the answer, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
So, and I heard it's been discussed in the parliament right now to implement it, but most of the people don't even know what it is. So can you please tell us what you think about it, and why do you think it's so dangerous, or it's kind of the box of the Pandora?
Yeah, this is a great question, Vicky. Thanks. And I think this reflects the problem that there's not enough public discussion about many of these issues. We see all sorts of things being rushed through recently in terms of bills at Parliament, and often the public are not discussing the issues. So, look, we at Together, the togetherdeclaration.org, we were formed in 2021 after Boris said in Britain, when he was the Prime Minister, after lockdowns and all of that was going on, we got Freedom Day now. But by the way, we've got vaccine passports. And I'd run a campaign called Open for All with over 1,000 venues in Britain, saying we would not be a papers, please society. We would not force people to show their health information to get into venues, particularly when, Boris then went on to say, oh yeah, by the way, this vaccine does not prevent transmission. And you just think, well, why are you doing it anyway? But even if it did do it, the idea that we have to show papers to get in is completely contrary to Britain. In Britain, just to remind ourselves, Winston Churchill in 1952 said we would not have national identity cards. He stopped the Labour passing that. He actually reversed it. And the British public have never wanted national identity cards, forced national identity cards. So obviously people have passports, people have driving licenses, people have different things like that. But Tony Blair in particular has been trying to push digital ID for quite a long time. It was rejected before, it fell apart. The public do not want it. And it seems like whatever the issue is, let's get digital ID. So during the period where we had lockdowns and a mandate for staff and everything, it was a big drive to say, let's have digital ID. And we launched the togetherdeclaration.org challenging vaccine passports, digital ID. We took a petition of over 300,000 people to Downing Street. And we said, we do not want to be tracked, surveyed, constantly nudged and pushed using our digital ID. Now, digital ID, the idea that you have an all-round set of digital ID, that the state is then able to look at things. We see it in the conversation of central bank digital currency. So the EU is passing one, 27 other nations have them. The idea that, as the CEO of the Bank of International Settlement says, we can track every single transaction. So we're saying we want cash. it's very important, not just practically. Older people often can't just get into digital, but we want cash. We don't want to be tracked and surveyed all the time. We don't want a social credit system like they have in China, where if you're not maybe recycling your refuse properly, or if you drive in certain areas, or if you go on holiday a lot and they say your carbon footprint's too high, or if you say things people don't agree with, then all of a sudden, if you can shut down people on the basis of their digital ID, that's enormously problematic. Now, people might say, well, that's a bit extreme. When's that ever going to happen? Well, let's look at what's happened. We've got a situation where many people were debanked. They were stopped banking with banks in Britain because of their political views. We've seen it with NatWest and others. We had a big campaign with the Free Speech Union and many other groups where we all wrote tens of thousands of letters to the Financial Control Authority and the Bank of England saying it's outrageous. We do not want to allow a situation where we're debanked by it because of our views. We've got to have free speech. So that nearly got passed in Parliament, but due to the snap election, it got held back. That's still going through, right? Though that is going through. We're saying we want cash. We campaigned with the Bank of England to have more banks and to have more cash machines. And in the same way, where they're trying to push digital ID now, they're saying all sorts of areas. They're saying, well, it's not really mandatory. What we're going to do is we'll say, if you want to go to the pub and you want convenience, well, you can use them there. Or if you really don't like what's happening with migration and the borders, we'll have digital ID for that, as though somehow us all getting digital ID is going to stop them, is going to help them stop the boats, right? It's completely not true. And they say, well, we're going to use it to stop fraud. But what they really mean is what's currently happening is that you've got unelected civil servants who now can go into people's bank accounts around pensions or what they say is around fraud or benefits and shut the accounts down or take money out without a warrant and without due process. We do not want any of these things. We see in these so-called low traffic neighborhoods and 15-minute cities, everywhere there's cameras. They want to track things. We've seen people say, let's track the cars. We know that with an all-round digital ID, the ability to track people everywhere just gets enhanced. We've seen that during lockdown, Palantir, who was set up by the CIA, were tracking people. We've seen that they now are the ones who are doing the NHS app. The idea that Palantir, which by the way is not a British company, it's an American one, but is linked to the state, and the state is able to monitor all of our transactions. We're in Britain, we have, until recently, more amount of CCTV cameras than anywhere. Still, per capita, per person, we still have one of the highest proportions. Everywhere monitoring people. Ironically, at the moment, when we've got many more violent crimes, we've got burglaries that the police don't turn up to and all of that. So the idea that when they track you and survey you, that somehow that improves them dealing with crime is a nonsense. But what it does do is for technocrats and people who want to control people and things, it puts them in a position where they can constantly survey you, they can track you. Now, we also know that during lockdown, we've seen the lockdown files, we've seen the Twitter files, we've seen the fact that this state has had something called a rapid response unit by the cabinet to target doctors, citizens, lawyers, campaign groups who said things that were seen as being dangerous, right? Dangerous, asking questions about things like masks or lockdowns or digital ID. And they always denied all of this, but then it became clear. We also have a so-called counter-disinformation unit. Now, this counter-disinformation unit has been relaunched again in light of what happened at Southport. And we've seen that two-tier Kia, we've seen that this Labour government wants to weaponise the justice system and the police. They go after certain people with certain views. We know that people like Bernie Spofforth had 6 police people come around to arrest her. She asked a question if this is true. We then found out later that perhaps it is true because the guy that had done the attacks, lo and behold, had got Al-Qaeda PDFs and had got Riasin in his house. And yet it was presented as though what you were doing is inflammatory, it was incitement. Yet at the same time, the guy who runs Hope Not Hate made a post at the same time and deleted it, said, "Oh, so I got a mistake," when he said that some white people had spread some chemicals over a Muslim person, and then a number of people had been beaten up because of it. He deleted it. He didn't get any attention. Now, I'm not saying they should have gone after him, but I'm saying we need to have policing without fear or favour, and not a state that is obsessed with things like so-called Islamophobia, or saying that the whole trans issue is the one, and that any people who ask questions about that, or saying that you're threatening lives when you challenge lockdowns, and then somehow what you're doing, what we're doing, is dangerous and needs to be monitored and shut down and spied on, yet other people who say other things, it might be all sorts of things, they might be chanting for ayatollahs in our streets, and I might not like it, but I'm not saying we should ban it, although some of them are even prescribed organizations and terrorist organizations, so there are laws about that already, but they're not being pursued. So you've got a state that is very, very discretionary. It's very, very discriminatory about how it wields its decisions, who it sends to arrest people when they can't even seem to deal with burglaries, who it's targeting if someone's praying outside a centre, an abortion centre, or whatever it might be. They make choices to go after certain people, and these tracking systems, these surveillance systems, are constantly used. We've seen that on social media, the Online Safety Act, and in the EU, they've got the Digital Services Act. We've seen that that has been used to take people down, to use big tech with the state, to spy on people, to say some things are beyond the pale. We just had a debate about the about assisted suicide bill before it was passed, and YouTube pulled it down. Now, it might be the algorithm, or it might just be that they decided that that's not acceptable. But the point is, when you've got these different things already happening, when you've got an all-round, pretty much social credit system, and some bright spark technocrat could just say, well, that person's a problem. Not just are we going to spy on you with a rapid response unit or a counter disinformation unit. We're not just going to take away your free speech, which without that we have nothing. But you know, perhaps what we're going to do is not allow that person to travel in certain areas, or take away their ability to do banking, or just limit them and isolate them. And so we're saying, you know, some people might say that's a bit extreme, and I'd say, well, it is a bit extreme, but look at the last 5 years. Look at how extreme things have been. Who'd have thought we'd have been locked in our houses and we would have been arrested for throwing snowballs in the park, or sitting in the park with a friend, right? All these things happened in Britain. Whilst we know that, it was utter nonsense. And so people talk a lot about George Orwell. People talk about 1984. They talk about Brave New World with Aldous Huxley. We're now seeing many of those things happening, and we are determined to retain the freedoms and the liberties that our ancestors fought for. You know, in the 16th and 17th century, and then later in the 18th and 19th century, people were tortured for things like wanting to translate the Bible from German into English. People were burnt at the stake. People were pilloried. We know that, you know, the Battle of Peterloo led to all sorts of things, to a challenge to the state to make sure we had free press. The English Constitution, you know, the unwritten part and the written part, the idea that we should have freedom of speech, that we should have democratic accountability. These are fundamental pillars that many of our ancestors fought and died for under terrible circumstances. And we are the custodians of them. We have a duty to uphold them, because if we do not, they'll be further encroached. And there's nothing that Tony Blair and Keir Starmer and all the people that were in the conservative, so-called conservative government before would like more than to silence certain people, to say, well, we're not just going to shadow ban them, which they all were doing until Elon Musk took over Twitter and then X and made it all apparent. But not only shadow ban them and censor them, but basically to shut us down. And so we're saying, we need a digital bill of rights. We need to have a situation that each of these areas are ring-fenced, protected, that there's clarity about our liberties and privacy and freedom, and that we're not going to allow a super state to just dominate every aspect of our lives. So that's why at togetherdeclaration.org, we are running a campaign that is pushing on a number of fronts. You know, Vicky, we have what we call a 360 degrees approach. So we have hundreds of thousands of supporters. We have local, regional, and national ambassadors and groups. We've campaigned on all sorts of things like cash or against low traffic neighbourhoods. You know, we met when we were over in Wales. We've got people in Wales and elsewhere. We campaign on a number of things. We work together. We've helped co-found Farmers to Action. We consistently challenge these impositions. And we're saying that also as well, we lobby, we campaign with the press, we get people to write to their MPs, to visit them, to call them. And we do protests and rallies and meeting groups locally, give out flyers. And we want a strong public that's engaged. We want to put pressure on those who are in authority to be transparent and to for them to be accountable, and us to put pressure on them and to say, this is what a healthy democracy looks like, with liberty, privacy, and the values that we think are important. Not one that says you're not allowed to say that. You know, recently we've seen that the Labour government are trying to push an Islamophobia law, and all the people in the committee already agree with that idea. So as one article recently said, it's a bit like asking vegans whether we should have meat or not. The whole idea is these people already think that. So together we use this 360-degree approach. We're a grassroots movement, but we also speak to MPs. You've just seen it with the assisted suicide bill. We were campaigning. We lost the first part of that. But we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep ensuring that we challenge things. And like we did with forced digital ID before with vaccine passports, which we managed to get stopped, we're going to keep campaigning on this, and we're going to push it all the way through.
That's great, because I remember Ursula von der Leyen saying in last year in Davos on the World Economic Forum, the biggest enemy of us is right now the fight against disinformation and misinformation. So it's literally what you said with all those laws and bills, what the European Union and the UK Parliament wanted to implemented about a safety act, about freedom of speech. And now when you see about what is happening with a digital ID, we all hear about, oh, it makes our life so much easier, and you will get into public areas so much easier. But they don't understand that when you give away your freedoms, even only a little bit, more and more, it's very hard to get them back.
Absolutely. So, you know, what is disinformation and what is misinformation? We were told that we need to follow the science. Well, what does that mean? There is no such thing as the science. What there is scientific inquiry. And that's a method of questioning and challenging and proving. And then there is politics and political decision making. And yet, if you challenged people saying follow the science, we were told that you're doing misinformation and disinformation, that you're a conspiracist, that you're far right. You know, we had something called the ultra low emission zone. We've got in London now, we've got local emission zones and clean air zones that some people who are in things like Davos, as well as places like C40 cities, which is around the world mayors, and our mayor in London, Mayor Sadiq Khan, is the chair of them, with a few green billionaires who fund all these things. They said, and the BBC said this, and the Mayor of London said this, that these people, that the ordinary members of the public that are challenging you, Les, are far right and conspiracists. The BBC then had to apologise for saying that they're far right because someone happened to have, you know, it's ridiculous, but on one of the jackets of someone at a protest, someone had a moustache that looked a little bit like Hitler with Sadiq's face on. So that individual was mocking Sadiq Khan. Now, mockery and comedy and humour and criticism is all part of free speech. But the BBC, who do know better and should know better, decided to run with this idea of smearing the British public for saying these things. Now, look, I know this is going everywhere, this podcast, but the irony of us being called far right and neo-Nazis and all of that is, it can't, you know, my grandparents fought against Nazis, right? The idea that the British public is all smeared as Nazis because they don't want lots of migrants who are no one knows about them coming into the country. The idea that they're far right or neo-Nazis because they don't want low traffic neighborhoods everywhere where people are fined and tracked and women can't seem to get taxis to go to places, and people who are disabled can't get taxis to come to them or drive around, or just people doing their work like carpenters or plumbers or chimney sweeps or anything. To call all of the British public far right or neo-Nazis is so outrageous. And but you see, what they do is they say they're that, and then they're doing misinformation. And what is needed is the bright people, the clever people, the ones who can tell us if it's disinformation or misinformation, to then cut through. This counter disinformation unit, a bit like BBC Verify, has a very particular view on things like the Islamophobia rules they're trying to pose. And what it is constantly saying they're right. They've got an outlook that is very particular, and the majority of the British public, and it is the majority of the British public, are wrong. And they actually think we're all kind of gammons. They use these words like gammons and racist and deplorables. Hillary Clinton called people deplorables. This idea that, you know, that it's just a disgusting mass, and they, the bright technocrats, need to do things. And as we know, Vicky, right, when Keir Starmer asked, do you prefer Davos or Westminster? He said Davos, because they love these places, right, where they can all mingle with technocrats who hate the public. They hate all of us. But some things are changing. We've got a bit of a populist movement happening here, like you have in Germany and like we've seen in America. Very interesting. You know, there's, for instance, Reform's a new political party. They've had 670 people elected to council positions. People are even saying they might be the next government. Now, we think that whoever's in government, we need to have an active public. We need to be able to put pressure on them, because people can say all sorts of things, but what are they actually going to do? We have a civil service. Even when the last government said it wanted to do some things, let's take migration as an example, civil servants stopped them from doing it. Right, because the civil servants are ideological, the heads of them. There's 250 of them that run it. And then we've got a vast bureaucracy, and the same problem in the NHS as we've got in all the civil service, the blob. And we need to hold them all accountable, and we need people that are going to be strong enough, a bit like Donald Trump did, where things like the Paris Accord and other things, he said, well, I've got a mandate from the public, so we're not doing it. We don't care. And we need to get that demos, the democracy, the populism of ordinary everyday people who don't want the state ever growing, ever more intervening, ever more surveilling. What we want is some things built, some reservoirs and some hospitals sometimes, and maybe some schools and fire stations and bridges and infrastructure projects with private business, and then get out of our lives in other areas. We can make decisions about who we see, what we do, where we go. We don't want to be tracked all the time. And if we all disagree with who we see, but they're personal privacy choices, right? And we need to get the public bit sorted out and the private bit sorted out. And so all of this harks back to the gains that we made across Europe with the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, the idea of individual conscience, individual liberty. You know, the Reformation challenged, they were called heretics, right? People who said, well, we can make individual choices. We can interpret things our own way. It led to political pamphleteering. It led to universal suffrage for all people. We never even had it for all men at one point. You had to have property. These are all recent changes. The idea that women could get a vote, they were saying that they're all kind of really emotional, and who could trust a woman to vote? All these things, right, required the public to bravely stand together and fight. Civil rights, the irony of being called far right, the civil rights movement was all based on the public asserting itself. We have the legacy of all of that. They don't, right? They like to pretend they do. They call themselves left and all of that. What they really mean is they've grown so far apart from the public that they hate us all. And now what's important is that people from all different former traditions, right, left, centre, people who've never been involved in politics, young people, everyone, all of us. And that's why we're working with farmers, with drivers, with carers, with the public, with businesses, with everyday people, to say we're not going to allow these technocratic impositions. We need a digital Bill of Rights. We need to have privacy, liberty, and to not be constantly nudged and monitored and coerced.
That's perfect. So, where can people find you on social media or on the website?
Yeah. So at the website, we're togetherdeclaration.org. And on X, we're at TogetherDec. And on all the other platforms, we're at Together Declaration. So you can look at us. We're on about 30 platforms. Yeah, we'd love people to join us. We'd love people to get involved and campaign with us. We love to have local groups everywhere. One of the things is we love digital, right? We do love digital. We love technology. I mean, I happen to think that digital medical records can be used really well by doctors. We just don't want everyone doing it. The NHS app at the moment has around 30 million people on it for one reason and another. You have to get prescriptions, things like that. All those things are an issue currently. But we like technology, but we want to make sure that we are in control of our privacy, our private lives, our future. Just a reminder, in Scotland, they passed the Hate Speech Act. What that means is if you're at home and I'm having a conversation with you, Vicky, and then I say something that someone says is Islamophobic or is far right or transphobic, I could be arrested for hate speech in my house. What I say behind closed doors, if someone hears it or someone else says it, you can see the impulse for this. Yep. This is where it's going. So we'd love people to get involved with us. We'd love people to support us. The Digital Bill of Rights going, there's going to be some big things happening with it over the summer. Yeah, I encourage everyone to support us if they can.